I'm Zim, and you're listening to the Helpful Photographer Podcast in collaboration with New York City Photo Safari. To register for a safari, please visit newyorkcityphotosafari.com. In the early part of my photography career, carbon fiber tripods were a new thing, and they were extremely expensive. As a matter of fact, at that time, the only manufacturer of carbon fiber tripods was Gitzo. Today, almost every single manufacturer on the market has a carbon fiber tripod in their product line. And Gitzo now only makes carbon fiber tripods. Although I spent most of my career longing for a carbon fiber tripod, now that I can actually afford one, I've come to the conclusion that they're not worth it. Or at least, not for the things that I tend to shoot. Fundamentally, the purpose of a tripod is to stabilize our cameras so that we can do a long exposure. The reason that tripods have 3 legs is so that they don't tip over. Well, duh. Pretty much everyone has figured that out. I know, I didn't have to say that. But the problem we face with a tripod is that very often we attach very heavy camera gear on top of them. To make this stable, your tripod needs either weight or mass. People who buy carbon fiber tripods typically buy them for travel, so they tend to buy small ones. As a result, the tripod can get very tippy because it's not only small, but lightweight while the camera remains heavy. A way to overcome the tippiness of these lightweight tripods would be to get one with beefier legs. Although pound per pound, carbon fiber is stiffer and much lighter than aluminum, unfortunately, the only part of the tripod that tends to be carbon fiber are the tubes that make up the legs, while the joints and the heads remain the same. So what happens is when you get to the larger tubes, all of the joints also get bigger. So in the end, with the larger carbon fiber tubes, you would have larger joints, which actually reintroduces weight back into the system. If we compare 2 tripods of the exact same design, but one is carbon fiber and the other is aluminum, what you will find is that the carbon one is only moderately lighter, often only about 10% lighter. But due to the weight loss, the tripod now tends to be more tippy, and you will need to deploy other strategies for stabilizing your camera. One way is to bring sandbags to put on the legs of your tripod, which totally defeats the use of a lightweight tripod. Another is to lower the center of gravity, which can be easily achieved by hanging a weight to the center column. That's why there's often a hook designed specifically for this purpose at the bottom of the column. Many photographers like to hang their bag there, but the problem is that if you're anything like me, most of the contents that make the bag heavy are now on top of the tripod, so that's not really helpful. But even with a heavy bag, I find that if there's a breeze, it will swing the bag around, defeating the purpose of the tripod. So if you're going to use your bag, put the bag on the ground and then attach it to the center column with a rope. If your bag is not heavy enough, you could bring a corkscrew dog stake to tie to the center column too. That is, if you're on dirt soft enough to take the stake. This could potentially create enough downward pull to make an extremely stable tripod. This would work for any tripod, carbon or aluminum, and it's much lighter than carrying a sandbag. Another way to make your tripod less tippy is to move the legs more outwards. What this does is it will lower the center of gravity, creating more stability. However, for this to be effective, it would require that the legs have some stiffness. If you have a travel tripod with skinny legs and a lot of flex, this will probably not help much and may even introduce more issues. This is where a carbon fiber tripod comes into play. They are much stiffer than the conventional aluminum tripod. So if you have a small carbon fiber tripod, you will probably be able to spread the legs out further to gain that stability. But this also means you lose your height. So to this end, why not just carry a more compact aluminum tripod where you can keep the height rather than going to a larger carbon fiber tripod to get back that height? As I said earlier, although a key benefit of carbon fiber is that it tends to be more rigid and stronger than aluminum under most circumstances, you need to be aware that there's still an issue of quality control. Unlike aluminum, there can be huge differences from one manufacturer to another, as there are many different ways to make carbon fiber, which would affect its rigidity and strength. So unless you're familiar with the manufacturing process, it's difficult to know what you're getting, especially on the lower end of the spectrum. Very often, cold temperatures can make carbon fiber brittle, which means if you drop the tripod in cold temperatures, the legs may crack. And yes, I've seen this happen. This would not be the case with aluminum. As you can see, there are some benefits to carbon fiber tripods, but from the travel size to the medium-sized tripods, they may present more problems than they solve. On the other end of the spectrum, you would definitely see a greater weight reduction and definitely get some of the other benefits moving to carbon fiber. However, if you're shooting in studio, I would still suggest a really heavy tripod. Why? Because most studio spaces tend to be a bit tight, and there's a tendency to trip over things like tripods. So a heavy tripod is helpful. And since you're not going far, there's no need for weight reductions. That's it for today. I hope that was helpful. And if it was, do give it a like on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. Until next time, keep on shooting.